Grace and peace, beloved. This is the day that the Lord has made, and we will rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome to this sacred moment, this divine appointment on Sunday, December 14th, 2025. Today, we step into the presence of God with intention, with expectation, and with faith that moves mountains. Before the sun fully rises, we rise. Before the world makes its demands, we align ourselves with heaven's agenda. This is your moment to reset, to refocus, and to recalibrate your spirit for the victories assigned to your day. As we begin today's segment, start your day with prayer, spiritual prayer. I decree and declare that nothing will block what God has ordained for you. No weapon formed will prosper. No assignment of darkness will prevail today. Your steps are ordered. Your mind is renewed. Your spirit is fortified. Your atmosphere is shifting even now. So prepare your heart, settle your spirit, and step boldly into this time of prayer, knowing that heaven is responding, angels are moving, and the power of God is about to be activated in your life. Let's pray. Aligning your spirit with God before the day begins is not merely a spiritual ritual. It is a deliberate act of positioning yourself under divine covering, divine clarity, and divine empowerment. When you awaken in the morning, you step into a world that is already moving, already speaking, already shaping atmospheres and influencing thoughts. But the believer who understands spiritual principles knows that the day must not be entered casually. It must be entered intentionally with spiritual alignment, because whatever begins the day determines the direction of the day. Before your feet touch the floor, before your mind becomes entangled with responsibilities, before emotions attempt to dictate your pace, you consciously anchor yourself in the presence of God. This alignment is the difference between reacting to life and governing life. It shifts you from survival mode to dominion mode, from confusion to clarity, from vulnerability to spiritual authority. To align your spirit with God means to bring your inner world into harmony with heaven's agenda. It is the process of synchronizing your thoughts, emotions, and intentions with the heartbeat of God. In the early moments of the day, when the world is quiet and your heart is most open, you are positioned to receive divine instruction, divine insight, and divine impartation. The noise of yesterday dissipates. The demands of the day have not yet rushed in, and you are able to hear with sensitivity and respond with purity. This is the moment when God can pour wisdom into you, reset what was unsettled, reset what was toxic, and establish what is necessary for your growth and your assignment. Spiritual alignment is not passive. It is active, deliberate, and deeply transformative. It is where your spirit remembers who you are, whose you are, and the authority you walk in. When you begin your day aligned with God, you command your atmosphere instead of your atmosphere commanding you. You cultivate an environment where peace becomes the dominant voice, where clarity becomes the guiding force, and where courage shapes your decisions. In this sacred space, God strengthens you with the grace to handle the unexpected and the discernment to navigate the unseen. The enemy always seeks to disrupt early, to plant seeds of frustration or distraction before you are spiritually fortified. But when your spirit is aligned, those attempts lose their power. You become unshakable, not because challenges disappear, but because you are rooted in divine strength and anchored in spiritual truth. God becomes your focus, and everything else falls into its proper place. Aligning your spirit means surrendering your agenda so that God's will can take precedence. It is acknowledging that your plans without God's breath are limited, but your steps ordered by the Lord become unstoppable. This surrender is not weakness, it is strength. It is the recognition that divine partnership produces results human effort alone cannot achieve. In this posture, you invite God to regulate your emotions, refine your perspective, and recalibrate your priorities. You allow Him to highlight what matters and silence what distracts. You give Him permission to prune whatever is unfruitful and to ignite whatever is dormant. This alignment shapes your mindset for productivity, peace, and purpose, enabling you to move through your day with confidence, focus, and spiritual stability. Beginning your day aligned with God also protects your spirit from the subtle influences that attempt to pull you away from your center. The world is filled with noise, opinions, pressures, and energies that can infiltrate your mind if you are not spiritually guarded. But when your alignment is set early, you establish a spiritual firewall. You create a boundary in the unseen realm that prevents negativity from entering your soul. You walk with a heightened sense of discernment, able to detect what is for you and what is against you, able to sense divine timing, able to resist distractions and emotional traps. The Holy Spirit becomes your compass, guiding you through conversations, decisions, and interactions with supernatural precision. In the early alignment of your spirit, God illuminates the path before you. He gives you strategies for the day, ideas that had not yet surfaced, solutions to problems you have not yet encountered. Divine alignment opens your mind to creativity and your heart to courage. It strengthens your resolve to carry out your assignments with excellence and conviction. When your spirit is aligned, you become aware of opportunities that others overlook. You perceive possibilities that fear would normally conceal. You step into each hour with expectation rather than anxiety, knowing that God has already gone before you, already prepared provisions, already orchestrated connections, already released grace for everything you will face. Aligning your spirit with God is also an act of spiritual warfare. It is a declaration that you refuse to begin your day in a weakened, distracted, or spiritually neutral state. Instead, you rise with authority, claiming the promises of God and rejecting anything contrary to His will. You dethrone fear, doubt, and discouragement before they have a chance to gain influence. You break every lingering residue from yesterday's battles. You reset your emotions so that they do not carry unnecessary burdens into a new day. You strip the enemy of access by covering yourself in prayer, by affirming God's truth, and by speaking life into your mind, your family, your environment, and your purpose. This alignment becomes both shield and sword, protecting you from spiritual attacks and empowering you to overcome whatever arises. As you align your spirit, gratitude becomes the foundation of your posture. Gratitude shifts your focus from what is missing to what is present, from what is uncertain to what is promised. It positions your heart in humility and your mind in faith. It breaks cycles of negativity and unlocks the flow of divine favor. Gratitude at the beginning of the day reminds you that God has kept you, sustained you, and positioned you for something greater, opens the door for joy, strengthens your hope, and cultivates resilience. Gratitude aligns your spirit by grounding you in the goodness of God, regardless of circumstances. When you take the time each morning to align your spirit with God, you declare that the day belongs to Him, that your thoughts will be governed by His wisdom, and that your steps will be guided by His hand. You position yourself as a vessel of purpose, a carrier of light, and an instrument of influence. You move into the day with spiritual clarity, emotional stability, and divine empowerment, ready to fulfill what God has entrusted to you. Declare divine order and protection over your day by stepping into the morning with a consciousness that your words are not empty sounds, but instruments of spiritual legislation. Every day carries its own atmosphere, its own assignments, its own challenges, and its own opportunities. Without declaration, the day unfolds according to natural patterns, external influences, and unseen forces. But when you rise and begin to decree divine order, you elevate your day into alignment with heaven's architecture. Divine order is not the absence of difficulty, it is the arrangement of your steps according to God's design. It is bringing the unseen chaos of the day under the authority of your spoken word. When you declare order, you are not reacting to circumstances. You are establishing conditions in the spirit that shape the conditions in the natural. You are commanding your environment to comply with God's will and refusing to allow confusion, disorder, or spiritual interference to dictate your path. Declaring divine order means that you invite God to be the orchestrator of your time, your interactions, your decisions, and your outcomes. You acknowledge that without His guidance, human wisdom is limited and human strength is insufficient. In the morning, the spiritual realm is sensitive and responsive, and your declarations create pathways for favor, clarity, and supernatural alignment. When you speak divine order, you bind every force that would seek to disrupt your assignment. You dismantle the plans of the enemy before they can take shape. You declare that what God has ordained for you will not be delayed, denied, or distorted. You speak harmony into your relationships, focus into your mind, productivity into your tasks, and peace into your environment. You set the tone for the day with authority, ensuring that your spirit governs your schedule rather than your spirit governing your spirit. Protection is the companion of divine order. When you declare protection over your day, you acknowledge that unseen forces operate in both light and darkness. You recognize that not all energy, not all influence, and not every interaction is neutral. Spiritual protection is not fear-based. It is wisdom-based. It is acknowledging your need for God's covering in a world filled with spiritual currents, emotional pressures, and unpredictable circumstances. When you declare protection, you are invoking the shield of God around your mind, body, spirit, and environment. You are activating angelic assistance, calling forth divine reinforcement, and surrounding yourself with God's presence as a barrier against attack. Protection keeps your peace intact. Protection guards your purpose. Protection secures your progress. It prevents the enemy from gaining a foothold and makes your spirit inaccessible to discouragement, confusion, or spiritual sabotage. Declaring divine protection begins with your words. Your words build hedges, create boundaries, and establish spiritual defenses. When you rise and say, "I am covered by the blood of Jesus," you are not reciting a phrase. You are activating a supernatural reality. When you decree, "No weapon formed against me will prosper," you are not speaking poetry. You are invoking a legal verdict in the courts of heaven. Protection is not passive. It is something you activate daily through intentional statement. When you declare protection, you close every door that the enemy could attempt to use as access. You cover your home, your loved ones, your health, your finances, your work, your decisions, and even your thoughts. You invite God to patrol the borders of your life and ensure that nothing unauthorized crosses into your space. Declaring order and protection over your day also establishes internal stability. The world is filled with distractions and emotional turbulence, but when you decree order, you command your emotions to come into submission to peace. You quiet the inner noise of anxiety and break the influence of stress before it settles. You dismantle worry by declaring that God is already in your tomorrow. You align your thoughts with truth, not fear. Protection over your mind ensures that intrusive thoughts do not take root, that doubt does not steal your confidence, and that old patterns do not pull you backward. Divine order regulates your internal world so that you move through the day with calmness, clarity, and spiritual precision. When you declare divine order, you also bring discipline into your day. God is a God of structure, timing, and intentionality. Declaring order opens your mind to what deserves your energy and what does not. It sharpens your discernment, allowing you to prioritize with wisdom and avoid unnecessary entanglements. Divine order produces flow. It creates a rhythm where tasks unfold without chaos and opportunities present themselves without strain. You begin to notice that interruptions lose their power, confusion loses its influence, and distractions lose their grip. A day that begins under the command of divine order becomes a day that unfolds with supernatural ease. You become more productive, more focused, and more attuned to God's direction. Declaring protection also impacts your interactions. Throughout the day, you encounter people carrying their own emotions, attitudes, and spiritual conditions. Without divine protection, those energies can affect you, drain you, or disrupt your peace. But when you speak protection over yourself, you become spiritually insulated. Negativity cannot attach itself to you. Toxic conversations cannot penetrate your atmosphere. Emotional heaviness cannot cling to your spirit. Protection allows you to move through various environments while remaining grounded, stable, and unaffected by external forces. It shields you from spiritual transference, emotional manipulation, and relational strain. As you declare order and protection, you also step into your authority as a believer. The enemy thrives where there is silence. But when you speak, you break the passivity that allows the enemy to operate undetected. You become the gatekeeper of your day, the watchman over your purpose, and the governor of your environment. Your words become keys that unlock what God has prepared for you and shut down what the enemy intends for harm. You rise as one who legislates in the spirit, not as one who drifts through the day. You become aware of the power of your voice, the weight of your declarations, and the reality that heaven responds when you speak with faith. Declaring divine order and protection each morning is not simply a habit, but a lifestyle. It is the recognition that every day is spiritual, every moment is significant, and every atmosphere is shaped by the words you speak. It is the discipline of placing God at the center of your plans, the forefront of your thoughts, and the foundation of your actions. It is choosing to walk through your day, not as one who hopes for stability, but as one who commands it. Not as one who wishes for peace, but as one who establishes it. Not as one who fears the unknown, but as one who is covered, guided, and strengthened by God's presence. Activate your faith for breakthroughs and open doors by recognizing that faith is not a passive belief system, but a dynamic force that shapes outcomes, shifts atmospheres, and pulls possibilities from the unseen realm into the visible. When you rise each day, you are not only stepping into new time, you are stepping into new potential. Faith becomes the bridge between what God has promised and what your eyes have not yet witnessed. To activate your faith means to stir the spiritual energy within you that refuses to settle for stagnation, limitation, or delay. It is the conscious decision to believe that God is moving, even when circumstances appear motionless. It is choosing to trust divine timing, even when natural signs contradict what you are praying for. Faith is the currency of the Spirit, and when you activate it early in your day, you set in motion a supernatural chain reaction that opens doors no man can shut. Faith is not an emotion, it is a spiritual posture. It is the stance of someone who has decided that their expectation will not be determined by sight. Activating your faith means waking up with the conviction that breakthroughs are not accidental, they are accessed. Open doors are not random, they are revealed. Miracles are not rare, they are responded to with faith. When you activate your faith, you rise above the limitations of your environment and step into the realm where God's power becomes your reality. Faith is what transforms barriers into passageways and resistance into opportunity. It is the force that turns dry seasons into birthing seasons, closed doors into divine redirection, and delays into preparation. Activating your faith requires intentionality. You stir your spirit through declaration, meditation, prayer, and alignment with truth rather than emotion. Your emotions may waver, but faith anchors you. Activating faith means feeding yourself with the promises of God until they become louder than your doubts. It means reminding yourself that you serve a God who specializes in the impossible, who creates ways where none exist, and who breathes life into what appears barren. You must speak faith before you feel it. You must declare victory before you see it. You must thank God in advance for what has not yet manifested, because thanksgiving is the posture of faith in motion. Faith for breakthroughs means refusing to accept stagnation as your portion. It is believing that what has been stuck can move, what has been closed can open, what has been delayed can accelerate, and what has been broken can be restored. A breakthrough is not merely a sudden change. It is the removal of a spiritual barrier that has held something back. To activate your faith for breakthroughs, you must first recognize that resistance is often the evidence that something is on the verge of shifting. The enemy does not fight what is empty. He fights what is pregnant with purpose. When you feel pressure, frustration, or delay, faith interprets it not as defeat, but as preparation. Activating your faith involves speaking to the invisible. Breakthroughs occur when you refuse to let circumstances define your expectation. Instead, you let your expectation define your circumstances. Faith speaks what heaven has said even when earth disagrees. Faith declares abundance in drought, healing in sickness, clarity in confusion, and victory in warfare. Faith does not deny reality, it overrides it with truth. When you activate your faith early in your day, you give no room for fear to settle, no space for doubt to grow, and no opportunity for defeat to influence your mindset. You rise with prophetic assurance, believing that God is aligning people, opportunities, and resources in your favor, even if you cannot yet trace the activity. Open doors are moments of divine access, supernatural opportunity, and spiritual advancement. When you activate your faith for open doors, you are positioning yourself to recognize and respond to what God is making available. Many doors remain unopened, not because they are locked, but because faith has not turned the handle. Faith opens doors by expectation, boldness, and readiness. You must believe that opportunities exist even when you cannot see them. You must believe that God has already prepared the next level, even when you feel stuck in the current one. Faith gives you the courage to step through open doors without hesitation, fear, or insecurity. Activating faith for open doors means seeing yourself the way God sees you. Many people miss opportunities because they doubt whether they are worthy, qualified, or capable. Faith refuses to entertain inferiority. Faith recognizes that God qualifies the called and empowers the willing. Faith understands that open doors are not based on merit alone, but on divine orchestration. When you activate your faith, you silence every voice that tells you not now or not you. You begin to expect divine encounters, strategic conversations, sudden favor, and unexpected breakthroughs. Faith trains your eyes to notice subtle shifts, divine nudges, and spiritual invitations that others overlook. Faith also requires movement. You cannot activate your faith while remaining motionless in your thinking, your actions, or your responses. Faith without movement is dormant. Movement is the evidence that you believe something is happening. Sometimes movement looks like prayer. Sometimes it looks like planning. Sometimes it looks like preparation. Sometimes it looks like stepping out before everything is clear. Faith pushes you forward even when your feelings try to hold you back. If you are waiting for everything to be perfect before you move, you are not operating in faith. Faith moves in expectation that perfection will meet you on the journey. Faith understands that God often reveals instructions step by step, not all at once. To activate your faith, you must guard your environment. Faith grows in atmospheres of belief and dies in atmospheres of doubt. You must be careful who you allow to speak into your day. You must distance yourself from voices that minimize your calling, underestimate your potential, or magnify your limitations. Faith requires an environment of agreement. Surround yourself with declarations, scriptures, worship, and voices that ignite your belief. Protect your mind from negativity, protect your heart from discouragement, and protect your spirit from spiritual contamination. Faith thrives where vision is nurtured. Activating your faith for breakthroughs and open doors also means releasing fear. Fear is faith in the wrong direction. It is belief in negative outcomes, belief in worst-case scenarios, belief in failure before you even begin. Faith and fear cannot coexist. One must dominate. When you choose to activate your faith, you silence the voice of fear deliberately. You choose to think in alignment with victory. You choose to anticipate favor instead of trouble. You choose to believe that God is working all things together for your good, regardless of what you see. Every breakthrough you are believing for requires a seed of faith. Every door you want opened requires a step of faith. Faith is the force that connects you with divine timing, divine opportunity, and divine intervention. When you activate your faith each day, you live with a sense of expectancy, momentum, and spiritual readiness. You become aware of God's movement, sensitive to his voice, and bold enough to seize what he places before you. You begin to witness shifts, changes, and openings that are directly connected to the faith you have activated within you. Dismiss every negative assignment against your purpose by first recognizing that purpose is not passive. It is pursued, protected, and spiritually defended. Every person born into the world carries a divine assignment, a calling intricately woven into their identity, gifts, and destiny. But with that assignment comes opposition, spiritual resistance designed to distract, delay, or derail what God has placed inside you. Negative assignments do not always appear dramatic or obvious. Sometimes they come subtly, disguised as discouragement, confusion, unexpected obstacles, emotional heaviness, or people strategically sent to disrupt your momentum. To dismiss these assignments is to stand in spiritual authority, refusing to allow anything that contradicts the will of God to operate unchecked in your life. It is the decision to reject every voice that speaks against your calling, every influence that drains your strength, and every force that attempts to sabotage your progress. Negative assignments are often targeted toward your mind because the mind is the gateway to your purpose. If the enemy can weaken your thoughts, he can weaken your steps. If he can distort your perspective, he can distort your decisions. If he can cloud your vision, he can cloud your progress. Dismissing negative assignments begins with protecting your mental space. Refusing to entertain thoughts that contradict God's promises about you, doubt, fear, insecurity, and self-sabotage are not random emotions. They are spiritual tactics designed to keep you from rising to your full potential. You must dismiss them the moment they appear, declaring that they have no authority, no validity, and no place in your spirit. When you learn to silence internal negativity, your purpose attracts opposition because it carries influence. The brighter the light, the stronger the resistance, the more impactful your calling, the more strategic the spiritual attacks. That is why you must begin each day by dismissing every negative assignment, because these assignments seek to operate before you are aware of them. Some assignments aim to create delays, others aim to discourage you before your breakthrough manifests. Some aim to distract you with unnecessary conflict or emotional entanglements. Dismissing these assignments means refusing to give them power by acknowledging them without accepting them. It means saying, this may be present, but it will not prosper. This may appear, but it will not stand. This may try, but it will not succeed. Dismissal is an act of spiritual warfare. It is the refusal to partner with anything that opposes your purpose. You dismiss assignments through your words because words establish legal boundaries in the spirit. When you speak against an assignment, you break its influence. When you declare every negative plan against my life is canceled, you are not using poetic language, you are releasing a spiritual verdict. When you say no weapon formed against me shall prosper, you are enforcing divine law. Dismissing negative assignments is not wishful thinking. It is spiritual legislation. You are serving notice to every opposing force that you will not be manipulated, controlled, or influenced by anything that contradicts your identity and destiny. Some negative assignments come through people who carry discouraging words, divisive attitudes, draining energy, or hidden agendas. Not everyone who enters your life is assigned by God. Some are sent to distract you, derail you, or diminish your confidence. Dismissing negative assignments means recognizing unhealthy patterns and refusing to entertain relationships that compromise your peace. It means being spiritually discerning, understanding that some connections are designed to pull you backward rather than push you forward. It means creating boundaries that protect your purpose and distancing yourself from those who undermine your journey. You cannot rise to your full calling while allowing yourself to be entangled with people who oppose your direction. Negative assignments also come through circumstances. Unexpected challenges, financial pressures, delays, closed doors, and setbacks can feel like indicators of failure, but often they are spiritual strategies intended to weaken your resolve. Dismissing these assignments means refusing to interpret circumstances through the lens of defeat. It means looking at adversity and saying, this is not the end. This is not a sign that I am unworthy. This is not evidence that God has abandoned me. Instead, you reinterpret the opposition as a sign that something powerful is being prepared. You adopt a posture of resilience, refusing to allow temporary obstacles to distort permanent promises. You stand firm, knowing that your purpose is bigger than any barrier that attempts to stop it. Your emotions can also become gateways for negative assignments. If sadness,